A guy named Joo-hyuk is getting shaken down by the loan sharks he borrowed money from. One of the thugs warns him to make sure he pays on time next time, or they'll start by selling his younger brother's organs. Being the cowardly wimp that he is, Joo-hyuk can do nothing except force a smile. The next morning, Joo-hyuk watches the news and discovers that the very people who lent him money have all been found dead, with their heads wrapped up like presents. He lets out a horrified scream after realizing it has to be the work of the mysterious summon he called the previous day. Let's rewind to yesterday. After finishing another one of his part-time jobs, Joo-hyuk returns to his tiny studio apartment, hidden away in a sketchy alley. Joo-hyuk is 25 years old and unemployed. His life is absolutely cooked. He works 3 different part-time jobs while drowning in debt, and the only way to keep paying it off is to keep working non-stop. He's living the life of a complete loser. The only thing he really has going for him is his body. No talents. No special abilities. Just as he's about to eat his cup of ramen, a blue system window suddenly pops up, informing him that he has awakened. Joo-hyuk bites his tongue from the shock and shouts out loud, wondering if he's really the one who awakened. For most people, becoming an awakened is seen as a blessing. It's the perfect chance to completely turn your life around. But for Joo-hyuk, it's nothing but terrible luck. Joo-hyuk is an absolute coward, and to enjoy the benefits of being an awakened, you have to climb the tower. His mind instantly starts imagining every possible way he could die in there. Getting ripped apart by monsters, freezing to death, and plenty of other horrifying possibilities. He's terrified of danger, terrified of confrontation, and avoids anywhere that even looks remotely risky. Then he proudly declares that he's both a coward and a loser. LMAO, why is he saying that like he's proud of it? Anyway, Joo-hyuk convinces himself that he's probably hallucinating. Stretching out his hand, he calls out, "Status window." Sure enough, his stats appear. His trait is summoning. Every awakened possesses a special ability known as a trait, and there are countless different kinds. Summoning is considered one of the rarest traits, allowing its user to call forth various beings. Our MC immediately wonders what kind of summoner he has become. Holding out his hand again, he shouts, "Summon!" Nothing happens. So he awkwardly tries again. Random summon. Still nothing. Then it hits him. Skills don't work outside the tower. They simply can't be activated in the outside world, meaning an awakened is basically no different from an ordinary person while they're outside. The MC silently calls himself an idiot for forgetting such basic common sense. Then, without any warning, the blue window announces that random summon has been successfully activated. A brilliant purple light bursts into the room. Within the light, the outline of a man slowly begins to form. Moments later, a man calmly steps out. The protagonist stares at him in complete disbelief, wondering how his skill actually worked outside the tower. He cautiously asks the newcomer if he's human. The man simply nods. Yes. He's human. The man just stands there while our MC wonders why he didn't summon something useful, like a golem. The summoned man suddenly sniffs the air before looking over at the ramen. Then he politely asks if he could have just one bite. Joo-hyuk agrees. The man happily slurps down the ramen while the protagonist watches him from behind with a gloomy expression. Joo-hyuk is completely confused. Why did his skill activate outside the tower? And more importantly, why did it summon a freaking human? He opens the status window once more. The system explains the different ranks of both humans and demons that can be summoned. Joo-hyuk immediately compares it to a gacha game. The system then explains the 3 absolute principles every summon must follow. First, the summon must protect its summoner at all costs. Second, the summon must obey every command without exception. Third, if the first and second principles ever come into conflict, the first principle always takes priority. Thinking those rules sound pretty great, Joo-hyuk starts wondering exactly who this guy is. A purple information window suddenly appears, revealing the summoned man's profile. He is the mad assassin of the Cruel Assassins Guild. His name is John Cossack. Although, we'll just call him John Wick for obvious reasons. He was both the guild's greatest asset and its biggest headache at the exact same time. He boasts an incredible 99% mission success rate and holds an SR rank. Just as the details surrounding his death are about to appear, The protagonist's head suddenly starts throbbing. Before he can react, his consciousness is dragged into another realm. The moment he opens his eyes, he sees John Wick charging directly toward him at insane speed. But John simply phases straight through him. Instead, we're shown John's memories. He rushes toward 4 different men before slicing off every one of their heads in an instant. Then, like an absolute madman, he carefully wraps each severed head like a present. Even the MC can't help but shiver after witnessing something that insane. Eventually, however, John's own life reaches its end. His final target turns out to be the Empire's greatest sword master. John is sliced clean in half and dies. The MC suddenly returns to reality, as John whispers into his ear with a creepy voice. Startled, Joo-hyuk jumps back in panic. John immediately apologizes, explaining that he was only waiting for an order. Joo-hyuk tries convincing himself not to be afraid, even though he still looks like a complete coward. After gathering what little courage he has, he tells John to wash the dishes and clean the table. John happily accepts the order and immediately gets to work. Joo-hyuk watches in amazement. Seeing John obey without hesitation reassures him that he really will do whatever he's told. Curious, Joo-hyuk asks if there isn't any command John would refuse. John calmly replies that he'll obey any order given by his summoner. Wanting to test that claim, our MC tells John to bark like a dog. The very next moment, Joo-hyuk realizes he may have gone too far. John was once a proud assassin. There's no way someone like him would actually. Before Joo-hyuk can finish that thought, John drops onto all fours and starts barking like an obedient puppy. The MC is now completely convinced that the system wasn't kidding about absolute obedience. Just then, loud pounding echoes from the front door. A man outside shouts, asking if Joo-hyuk is home. The MC suddenly remembers that today is the day he's supposed to pay the interest on his debt. Joo-hyuk had borrowed 10 million won. Since the banks refused to lend him money, he had no choice but to turn to loan sharks. The money was used to pay for his father's surgery, along with his younger brother's college tuition. At the time, he believed he'd be able to repay everything quickly. Instead, the only thing he's managed to keep paying is the interest. He knows borrowing from them was a terrible decision. But there wasn't any other option. Even if he could go back, he wouldn't hesitate to make the same choice again. As the banging on the door continues, Joo-hyuk quietly calls for John. John steps forward with a frightening expression and calmly asks if he should chop the bastard's head off. The MC immediately shoves John toward the bathroom. He orders him to stay hidden, remain completely silent, and not move a single muscle. John then asks if he's at least allowed to breathe. Joo-hyuk, of course, says yes. The front door finally opens. One of the thugs grabs Joo-hyuk by the neck and asks if he's sick, since he failed to make today's payment. The MC quickly apologizes before transferring the money. The thug casually tells Joo-hyuk that if things ever get difficult, he can always sell one of his kidneys. One kidney. And all his financial problems disappear. Another thug reminds the boss that Joo-hyuk also has a younger brother. The boss smirks. He says younger organs sell for even more. Joo-hyuk instinctively glares at him. The thug notices immediately and asks if Joo-hyuk is looking for a fight. Instead, the MC simply forces another smile. Just like always, he avoids the confrontation like the coward he is. Once the thugs finally leave, Joo-hyuk lets out a long sigh of relief. John quietly walks out of the bathroom. Joo-hyuk praises him for hiding so well. Completely exhausted, the MC thinks back on everything that's happened today. It makes him wonder if he should actually try climbing the tower. Then he immediately talks himself out of it. Sure, the money would be nice. But someone as cowardly as him could never survive inside the tower. John then asks what he should do next. Joo-hyuk admits that he isn't really sure. He tells John that if he wants to return, he can simply unsummon him. John smiles before politely asking if he could watch TV instead. Joo-hyuk agrees, still wondering how John already knows about things like televisions and ramen. John thanks him before happily sitting down to watch K-dramas. Meanwhile, Joo-hyuk lies down on his bed. Even though John is only a summoned being, Joo-hyuk realizes it's surprisingly comforting having someone else around. He's spent every day working by himself. Having someone nearby actually feels nice. Not long after that, the MC slowly falls asleep. The alarm rings at 8 in the morning. Our MC wakes up and remembers that John was automatically unsummoned during the night. He climbs out of bed and starts getting ready for work. While brushing his teeth, he hears the morning news. At the office of an illegal money-lending company in Seoul, 3 men have been found dead. Their heads were wrapped up like gifts. As the pieces begin falling into place, the MC wonders if the culprit could really have been John Wick. A horrified scream escapes his mouth. He finally realizes. He didn't summon a companion. He summoned a psychopathic killer. Our MC is scared shitless, biting his fingernails non-stop. While he's busy freaking out, a customer walks into the gloomy convenience store. Except, their head is wrapped up like a gift. Then, the faces of all those loan sharks from yesterday start appearing in front of him. Every single one of them. Wrapped like presents. Our MC lets out a terrified scream. In reality, though, it's just a woman asking if he's alright. Realizing he just embarrassed the hell out of himself, Joo-hyuk quickly apologizes. Later, while wandering around the streets, Joo-hyuk can't get those deaths out of his head. He starts wondering. Did those guys die because of him? The thought alone is driving him insane. He ends up calling off work for the day because there's no way he can focus like this. That night, back at his apartment, Joo-hyuk sits on the floor, thinking about John. He debates whether he should summon him again. After sitting there for a while, he finally raises his hand. Summon. Before John appears, a blue system window suddenly pops up. It asks him to rate John before summoning him again. Inside his head, our MC immediately starts bitching. While he was sitting here watching TV, John straight up went out and murdered 3 people. His first instinct is to give the guy 1 star. He even flips him off. Well, only in his imagination. When it actually comes time to leave a rating, he chickens out. Instead, he gives John 3 stars. Why? Because his mom used to work in sales, so he knows just how brutal low ratings can be. Only Joo-hyuk would think about something like that in this situation. A second later, John appears. Reporting for duty! He's weirdly happy to be back. He even thanks Joo-hyuk for the 3-star rating and promises he'll work even harder next time. Joo-hyuk just stares at him. Can this guy really be the one who butchered 3 people? After hesitating for a bit, he finally asks. John, were you the one who killed those 3 guys yesterday? John smiles. Then casually says yes. Joo-hyuk freezes. Huh! The realization finally sinks in. The guy standing right in front of him is a murderer. His heart starts pounding like crazy. He takes a deep breath and tries calming himself down. John isn't going to hurt him. At least, that's what he keeps telling himself. Trying to change the topic, Joo-hyuk asks how John even found their office. John explains that he placed the tracker's mark on those bastards yesterday. Our MC immediately asks why he'd go that far. John answers without the slightest hesitation. They were a threat. It was better to get rid of them early. Joo-hyuk quickly points out that he never told him to kill anybody. John explains that it was because of the 3rd summoning principle. Absolute obedience comes second. Protecting the summoner's life always comes first. Joo-hyuk immediately throws another question at him. So, if I told you to kill me, you'd refuse? John nods. Joo-hyuk argues that those loan sharks weren't even an immediate threat. Yet John still decided to kill them on his own. John immediately starts explaining himself. From his perspective, those guys were guaranteed to become a threat sooner or later. So why wait? Getting rid of them now was simply the logical choice. The MC immediately blurts out. Dude, that's fucking psychotic. Then, because he's Joo-hyuk, he immediately apologizes. Thankfully, John doesn't seem offended in the slightest. Joo-hyuk understands where John is coming from. But that kind of reasoning is way too dangerous. He immediately imagines himself walking down the street with John. Some random punk bumps into him and threatens to kill him. Even if the guy is just acting tough, John would probably take it seriously and kill him on the spot. No. Just imagining that is enough to stress our MC out. Seeing Joo-hyuk's troubled expression, John suddenly kneels down and apologizes. Joo-hyuk quickly tells him to get back up. He explains that killing people doesn't help him. If anything, it only puts him in even more danger. John calmly replies that nobody will ever find out. Joo-hyuk tells him to never do something like that again. John doesn't exactly promise. Even after listening to everything Joo-hyuk said, he simply says he'll continue using his own best judgment. Joo-hyuk lets out a tired sigh. John really is stubborn. So, for now, he tells him he can go. Just before leaving, John suddenly asks Joo-hyuk if he's ever thought about climbing the tower. Even hearing the word tower makes Joo-hyuk shiver. Still, he knows it's an incredible opportunity. The problem is that stepping inside could easily cost him his life. Curious, Joo-hyuk asks if there were other summoners before him. John nods. There were. He says they were all strong and fearless. Hearing that makes Joo-hyuk feel embarrassed. Other people use their abilities to save the world. Meanwhile, he can't even bring himself to risk his own life. Joo-hyuk quietly calls himself a pathetic wimpy coward. Okay, he only called himself pathetic. I'm just adding the other part lol. Out of nowhere, John suddenly stands up. No! He says Joo-hyuk is the greatest summoner he's ever served. That completely catches Joo-hyuk off guard. John explains that a summoner's greatest virtue isn't bravery. It's staying alive. According to him, bravery can be poison. If the summoner dies trying to be brave, then the summon can't protect them anymore. John tells Joo-hyuk not to force himself. Take it easy. Live a long life. He'll handle all the dirty work. Those words leave Joo-hyuk completely speechless. The next morning, Joo-hyuk wakes up after spending the entire night wondering whether he should climb the tower. Eventually, he convinces himself to just move on. His debt collectors are already dead. Maybe he should simply forget about all of this, keep working, and live a normal, safe life. If he works hard enough, everything should eventually go back to normal. Just as he's stretching, his phone suddenly rings. It's his dad. His father tells him that he'll need to be transferred to a bigger hospital. He also mentions that Joo-hyuk's mom recently lost her job. Even then, his dad tells him not to worry. He only called to check how Joo-hyuk was doing. Joo-hyuk tells him he'll visit soon and asks him to take care before hanging up. The moment the call ends, we immediately see Joo-hyuk dressed from head to toe in protective gear. Looks like he changed his mind. He tells himself he'll just take one quick look inside the tower. If it feels even a little dangerous, he's turning right back around. He even took the day off work for this. Just as he's about to summon John, another thought crosses his mind. Wait. Does he really have to be stuck with that psycho? Can't he summon someone else instead? Who knows? Maybe he'll get lucky and pull some ridiculously rare summon. The system immediately shuts that idea down. Random summon is on a 1-month cooldown. So, in the end, he's stuck with John. John appears with his usual smile and happily reports for duty. Joo-hyuk awkwardly welcomes him back before announcing that he's finally decided to enter the tower. John calls him brave, then immediately takes it back. Joo-hyuk tells him not to get the wrong idea. He's only going in to have a quick look around. John simply smiles, then tells him to throw away that cheap plastic armor. He'll be Joo-hyuk's guide. He promises to keep him safe and comfortable the entire time. Joo-hyuk won't even have to lift a finger. A blue system window appears. Enter Korea's Black Tower Floor 1? After getting one last confirmation from John, Joo-hyuk accepts. The next moment, the teleportation begins. Our MC immediately starts screaming. Meanwhile, John casually holds him down as they're transported into the tower. And with that, our protagonist's journey truly begins. Joo-hyuk screams his lungs out, but eventually arrives on the first floor of Korea's Black Tower. John is standing right beside him. Looking around, he points out that the first floor is nothing but a complete wasteland. Meanwhile, our MC suddenly feels sick. He bends over and starts throwing up. After taking a moment to recover, the two of them finally step out of the safe zone. The moment Joo-hyuk enters the battlefield, his powers activate. His physical abilities instantly increase to match his current level. Joo-hyuk clenches his fists. Damn. He actually feels pretty strong. The mission on the first floor is simple. Kill 5 thick-skinned fat maggots within 2 hours. Sure enough, huge sluggish maggots can be seen crawling all over the wasteland. Joo-hyuk remembers reading that the first floor is meant to test a player's basic abilities. The maggots barely deal any damage. The problem is, their skin is tough as hell. That's what makes them so annoying to kill. Some players even take 30 minutes just to kill one. Reminding himself that he's an actual player now, Joo-hyuk steps forward. He probably announces that he'll take one down first. John immediately tells him there's no need to trouble himself. Joo-hyuk awkwardly stands in front of one of the maggots. Just as he turns around to borrow John's sword, the maggot suddenly raises its mouth and prepares to attack. Joo-hyuk looks back. Immediately shits his pants. He instantly calls for John's help. John smiles. A wise decision. The next second, he dashes forward. One clean slash. The maggot is dead. Telling Joo-hyuk to stay back, John keeps moving. He cuts down every maggot in his path without slowing down. After clearing the area, he suddenly stops. Then throws his knives in every direction. Each blade sticks into a different monster. John quietly activates. Blade burst. A series of explosions erupts across the battlefield, blowing up every remaining maggot at once. Joo-hyuk just stands there with his mouth hanging open. He can't help but praise John. With the floor cleared, Joo-hyuk levels up. He receives an S++ rank for clearing the first floor. On top of that, he's rewarded with a platinum badge. Joo-hyuk starts daydreaming. If climbing the tower is this easy, couldn't he make a ridiculous amount of money doing this? But what our lovable loser doesn't know is that, at this exact moment, every single player in Korea receives the same system announcement. Before we get to that message though, we cut back to Joo-hyuk, who has already left the tower. He's shocked that the entire run only took 5 minutes. The teleportation still leaves him feeling a little nauseous. John congratulates his summoner on clearing the floor. Just as Joo-hyuk is about to point out that he contributed absolutely nothing, John cuts him off. Exactly. That's all you need to do. Just sit back. Joo-hyuk always thought hunting monsters was supposed to be exhausting. Something that would take hours. Instead, the whole thing was over before he even knew it. As part of his rewards, Joo-hyuk also receives a mana stone. Mana stones have become one of the most important resources in the modern world. Ever since the towers appeared, their price has dropped to around 50,000 won per 100 grams. The mana stone is nice. But what really catches Joo-hyuk's attention is the platinum badge. He's never even heard of one before. Still, he's more than happy knowing he just earned 50,000 won in only a few minutes. Feeling generous, Joo-hyuk invites John out for a meal. The two of them end up eating all kinds of spicy food. John happily picks up a piece of beef and thanks Joo-hyuk for treating him. Joo-hyuk suddenly asks why John always speaks so formally. John explains that it's simply a habit he picked up from spending so much time with his previous summoner. Joo-hyuk thinks that's actually kind of cute. It's like he's still carrying around the habits he learned from an ex. The two of them share a laugh. For the first time, Joo-hyuk truly believes that John is actually a nice guy. Maybe climbing the tower won't be so bad after all. The next morning, Joo-hyuk sticks a new schedule onto his wall. He proudly calls it a real man's routine. Yeah. Sure, buddy. According to the schedule, he'll work at the convenience store during the day, and the barbecue restaurant at night. As for his third part-time job, he quits it. That way, he can stay home and grind the tower with John instead. Once everything's ready, he summons John. The moment John appears, he thanks Joo-hyuk for giving him another good rating. Joo-hyuk smiles and says he wishes he could have rated him even higher. That makes him curious. Is the satisfaction rating really that important? John nods. The higher his rating is, the more benefits he receives. Things like shorter summon cooldowns, along with other advantages. Hearing that, Joo-hyuk makes a mental note to keep giving him good ratings. Not long after, the two of them enter the second floor of the tower. This time, Joo-hyuk handles the teleportation much better. At least he isn't screaming his head off anymore. The mission for the second floor is straightforward. Defeat 10 fast maggots within 2 hours. Joo-hyuk remembers hearing about this floor. Unlike the first one, these monsters are incredibly quick. That's what makes this stage so troublesome. For the first time, Jaehyuk starts worrying about John. What if he gets hurt trying to fight all of them? John simply smiles. That won't happen. He calmly tells Jaehyuk he'll finish everything in 3 minutes. At most. The next second, John launches himself into the air. Meanwhile, Jaehyuk casually asks if they should celebrate with fried chicken tonight. John thanks him, while casually throwing his knives. Every blade finds its target. A second later, the explosions wipe out every monster on the floor. And just like that, the second floor is cleared. Jaehyuk can only stare in disbelief. Seriously. This guy is ridiculous. For clearing the floor, Jaehyuk receives 2 mana stones, another S++ rank, and yet another platinum badge. At this point, Jaehyuk starts wondering if the early floors are supposed to be this easy. If things keep going like this, he could literally clear the tower before heading to work every morning. The two of them continue on to the 3rd floor. This time, Jaehyuk lands much more smoothly than before. Looks like he's finally getting used to the teleportation. Just like before, John makes short work of the entire floor. Another S++ rank. Another platinum badge. Then comes the 4th floor. Cleared. The 5th floor. Also cleared. Every single stage ends with an S++ rank. Once the 5th floor is complete, a blue system window suddenly appears. It informs Jaehyuk that he's collected 5 S++ platinum badges. As a reward for achieving that milestone, he's granted a new perk, Awakening Trait Enhancement. Thanks to this reward, Jaehyuk can now summon up to 2 summons at the same time. Our dear summoner finally gets the skill to have 2 concurrent summons. He thought John alone was already enough, but now he can bring 2. He can't believe it. S++ rank rewards really are the best. He figures this skill will make things much faster in the long run. The only problem is that the random summon still has 20 days of cooldown left, so he just has to survive those 20 days. After that, his 2 summons can keep clearing the tower with S++ ranks while he sleeps. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Feeling motivated, he decides it's finally time to head for the 6th floor and keep climbing the tower. Meanwhile, at the main HQ of the Korean Awakening Management Department, the atmosphere is dead serious. An officer sits there wondering when he should post the announcement. Suddenly, a female officer appears beside him and quietly asks if he's thinking about it. The guy almost jumps out of his chair and tells her to stop trying to read people's minds. It's revealed that the man is team leader John Gwang-il, while the woman is manager Lee Min-ah. John asks if the announcement has been posted, and Min-ah confirms it. Another S++ rank clear, this time for Korea's 6th floor. John gets nervous thinking about these unbelievable announcements appearing every single day. He's convinced it's the work of one person since the floors are being cleared in perfect order, starting from the 1st. Whoever this is has unprecedented talent. If they keep getting S++ ranks on the 7th, 8th, 9th, and even the 10th floor. Before he can finish, the department director, Park Hyung-soo, slams his hand on the table. He reminds everyone that the highest rank ever recorded in Korea was only A. They only just learned that ranks beyond A even existed, and now they know announcements are made whenever someone earns an S++. He explains that player migration has become common across the world. Countries are even secretly kidnapping talented players. They absolutely cannot risk losing this player to another country. They need to find them immediately. The director orders everyone to closely monitor every newly registered player. 2 days later, back at Jaehyuk's house, John is casually washing the dishes while Jaehyuk asks if they're clearing the 8th floor today. The protagonist is honestly loving how they've been clearing 1 floor a day without any problems. He figures floors 1 through 10 are basically beginner zones, so it only makes sense that things have been going this smoothly. Inside the mushy 8th floor of the tower, their mission is to defeat 10 red thorn frog warriors. The frogs immediately charge at them from all directions. One of them shoots out its tongue, but John simply pulls out his aura-coated blade and starts chopping the frogs in half. Just like that, they clear the 8th floor and once again receive an S++ rank. John congratulates Jaehyuk on clearing yet another floor, while our MC starts blabbering about how he didn't really do anything. John just shrugs and says the hardest part is getting into the tower in the first place. Jaehyuk, all happy and bubbly, thanks John because they're clearing everything this easily thanks to him. John, however, tells him they still can't let their guard down. It's said that after the 10th floor, things become much more dangerous. Thinking John deserves a reward for all his hard work, Jae-hyuk notices there's still some time left before his materialization ends. He starts pulling out some cash and tells John to go outside and eat something tasty. John gracefully declines. Jae-hyuk is completely confused and asks why. John says he can't leave Jae-hyuk alone. He'd rather stay home and watch TV. So Jae-hyuk suggests they just order some fried chicken instead. Our cutie patootie John instantly agrees. He's already talking about getting the spicy one while placing the order over the phone. LMAO. This guy really got used to modern life fast. As another reward, Jae-hyuk receives a tower-exclusive healing potion and immediately decides to give it to John. After that, he starts wondering what to do with all his mana stones. He's already collected 3.6 kg, which would sell for around 1.9 million won. Yeah. He should probably start thinking about selling those. It's now day 10, and Jae-hyuk is getting ready to raid the 10th floor. He thinks back to how he originally planned to just dip his toes into the tower, yet they've been clearing a floor every single day like it's nothing. Even yesterday's 9th floor was a complete breeze. At this point he's mentally glazing John so hard that he's practically giving him a toast. Already forgetting this is the same guy who used to be a murderous assassin. And BTW. He's also the same guy Jae-hyuk thought was too dangerous to keep around. He summons John once again. The system suddenly informs him that because John has received so many 5-star ratings, his devotion time has increased by 1 extra hour. Jae-hyuk thinks that's actually a pretty nice reward for giving him such high ratings. John appears looking happier than ever, excited that he gets to serve Jae-hyuk for another hour. Bro literally poses with a heart. John tells Jae-hyuk to trust only him. They enter the 10th floor. The moment they step inside, Jae-hyuk can feel his body readjusting. The mysterious magic gathered in his lower abdomen surges, filling him with overwhelming power. He starts wondering. Has he become an untamable wild horse? Why does this guy even think he has aura? I'm crying. Jae-hyuk, now imagined as a majestic horse in his own head, taps John on the shoulder and proudly declares that from now on, he'll be helping too. John immediately protests. If Jae-hyuk gets hurt, John would have to kill himself for failing to protect his summoner. But horse Jae-hyuk isn't having any of it. He confidently tells John not to worry because he's already become a wild horse. Just as he's about to keep talking, a shiver suddenly runs down his spine. A massive green eye stares directly at him. It's a gigantic grasshopper. Jae-hyuk immediately shits his pants and transforms right back into his normal, wimpy self. He's sweating bullets, wondering how players are even supposed to defeat something like that. Immediately abandoning his previous decision, he tells John that going after such a tiny bug would only hurt a human's pride. John simply replies that his pride won't be hurt. Jae-hyuk quickly corrects him. No, I'm talking about my pride. LMAO. The giant grasshopper gnashes its teeth and lunges toward them. Meanwhile, Jae-hyuk has fully accepted his role and starts cheering John on from the sidelines. John dashes straight up the monster's legs, meets its gaze head-on, and with a single flawless combo, slices the giant grasshopper into what feels like 100 pieces. And just like that, the 10th floor is cleared with another S++ rank. John stylishly spins his swords before sheathing them. Mission complete! They return to Earth. By now, Jae-hyuk has accumulated 5.5 kg of mana stones along with 5 more platinum badges. Then another system window pops up. It's a reward for collecting 10 platinum badges. Jae-hyuk immediately gets excited, wondering what kind of perk he's about to receive. The reward is finally revealed. He can now copy one skill from any of his summons. Skills like Blade Burst, Ambush, Stealth, and more. Jae-hyuk is completely shocked. Without any hesitation, John tells him to choose Shadow Step. No questions asked? Jae-hyuk asks why. John explains that if something ever happens to him, Shadow Step will let Jae-hyuk escape safely. Jae-hyuk's expression immediately turns serious. In his head he's thinking, what kind of person does this guy think I am? Someone who'd abandon everyone just to save his own skin. The system window suddenly appears. Shadow Step has been learned. It can now be used. Elmeo. Juhyuk immediately starts acting all serious, saying that quick feet are important in combat too. Meanwhile, John happily claps for him. Juhyuk heads outside to test the skill. A little while later, he comes back inside completely out of breath. He complains that there's absolutely no consistency to Shadow Step. If they're going to make summoning real, they should at least make the skills work properly too. John has absolutely no idea what Juhyuk is talking about. But he still nods and says Juhyuk must be right. It's now day 11 of climbing the tower. Juhyuk is on a phone call, blushing like crazy. On the other end is the Awakening Management Department's call center. Stuttering the whole time, he says he's calling because he recently awakened. The employee immediately gets excited, congratulates player Juhyuk, and says he must be pretty confused right now. They ask if they can send government representatives to his house to explain everything. Juhyuk gets completely overwhelmed by how loud they are, but agrees and gives them his address. They tell him they'll be there as soon as possible. Bang Juhyuk. This man even contacted the Awakening Department to sell his mana stones. This was probably the most courageous decision he's made in all 25 years of his life. He's absolutely exhausted. Meanwhile, we see our pretty manager, Lee Min-ah, getting into a black car. The team leader asks about the player who called yesterday after awakening. Min-ah tells him it doesn't seem like that person is behind the recent S++ rank clears. The team leader is visibly disappointed, wondering if they'll ever find the mysterious player. Min-ah then asks if he'd like to come along to meet another newly awakened player who called today. Our boy Juhyuk. The team leader immediately agrees. If this turns out to be the right person, they'll recruit them into the elite team no matter what. They're ready to offer every benefit the Awakening Management Department possibly can. Back at Juhyuk's house, our boy is absolutely polishing the place. The floor. The bed. Everything. A knock suddenly comes from the front door. The Awakening Management Department is here. Juhyuk thinks they're finally here. He opens the door, welcomes them inside, and apologizes for how cramped the place is. The man introduces himself as Team Leader John from the Awakening Management Department. He tells Juhyuk that if he has any questions, he can freely ask Manager Lee since she's also an awakened player. Juhyuk somehow gets even more nervous after realizing there's a woman here too. Manager Lee politely says, "Excuse me." Juhyuk introduces himself. Then, Manager Lee suddenly gets right up in his face. Our boy freezes. His face turns bright red. His cheeks are burning. As she stares directly at him, she asks, "Is it you? Are you the S++ ranker?" Completely shocking Juhyuk. Well, that's the end of part 1. If you enjoyed this recap, you'll probably like this one too. Thanks for watching.